Hello, my name is Kent Field, and thank you for tuning into this YouTube channel, The Bible versus Opinions. God bless you in your search for the truth. While all people have opinions on many subjects, including the Bible and religion, not all opinions carry the same weight or value. For example, would you go to a plumber for his advice on brain surgery? Would you go to a mechanic for his advice on heart surgery? The point is, not all opinions carry the same weight or value on a particular subject. That's why I'm not offering you my mere opinion, but Bible answers alone. So here's the challenge. Are you open to learning beyond your current understanding and knowledge of the Bible? If so, then this channel is for you. If these studies have helped you to grow in your understanding of the Bible, or even life itself, please like and subscribe and share this channel with others so that they too may be challenged and grow in their understanding of the scriptures.
Now we are recording. I want you to realize that when people teach, a lot of times in a lot of congregations, a lot of churches, I've noticed over the years that sometimes, unfortunately, it is what I call an ignorance pool. Let's all read some passages and pool our ignorance together of what we don't know and try to figure out what the passage is saying. Not necessarily with any historical context or understanding or knowledge. Now, if people are getting together and reading the Bible and trying to figure it out together, that's not bad. But at that point, the teacher's not a teacher. What is he or she? What are they?
A moderator?
A moderator or a narrator. Basically a moderator, right? It's my intention to not be a moderator. That's why I went away to study as intensively as I have. And why I still continue to study and research the way I do is so that I'm not a moderator of discussion. Although sometimes it's necessary to ask questions to bring out the answers. I don't necessarily not know the answers to the questions I'm asking. To be a good teacher, to really help your students learn, you need to know the answers to the questions you're asking already. Or you have no business teaching that class. If you're a good attorney, before you ask the question, when you ask a question, you already know the correct answers to those questions before you ask them. So that what? You're not caught off guard by the witness. As a teacher, you don't want to be caught not knowing what you're talking about, and yet you're being paid to be the teacher in a college or campus. Imagine spending $100,000, $99,000 a year to go to Harvard, and the teachers don't know the answers to the questions they're asking you. What are you paying for? Now, I'm saying all this by way of an introduction tonight because I really want to ask the questions and demand an answer from you guys. It's not going to be good enough for you to say, well, I don't know. And that means, Sal, if you have the ability, anybody else, Pat, if you have the ability to look things up or offer answers, I suggest that you do that. Hold on, hang on. Anyway, so if you could, we're going to go over, by way of review, we started discussing Hair, not the play Hair or the movie Hair. I think there was a movie eventually, but it was started out as a play back in the early 70s, like 71 or 72, somewhere around there. Back in the days when everybody had long hair. I had long hair. down past my shoulder. This talks about the man, verse 3. You have to understand that Christ is the head of every man. And the man is the head of a woman. The aner is the head of a gune. And God is the head of Messiah, the Messiah. Mm-hmm. So Christ submits himself to the Father, even though he's also God. One and the same. How is it when Peter said to Jesus, show us the Father, it'll be good enough for us? Didn't he say something like that? It'll be good enough. You just show us the Father. Mm-hmm. And what did Jesus say?
Have I been with you so long that you don't know me?
I and my Father are one. But I've been with you so long, you still don't know me, Peter? Every man who has something, literally, who has in his head while he's praying or prophesying disgraces his head. Now, I don't know necessarily what he's talking about. It could be a hat, might not be a hat. Could be his hair. But what I want us to get straight in our own heads is that as we're looking at this, you'll see that when Sal prays or I pray, and if I have a hat on, I take it off. And I do that even if somebody else is leading in the prayer. Although it appears to me that he's discussing people who are speaking more publicly here. That's why man is the head of the woman. Christ is the head of every man. God is the head of Christ. Just remember all that. But when you have every man who has something on his head when he is praying or prophesying disgraces his head. To prophesy literally means to speak forth. It can and often does in the New Testament means under inspiration. All right? They were given the gift of prophecy, to prophesy. Okay? It doesn't mean to foretell the future. Prophecy is not foretelling, it's forthtelling by definition. Okay? Now, when they didn't have a New Testament in the first century, so when they went to a church, they gave the gift of prophecy to those congregations so that they'd have some guidance, right? Yeah. But every woman who has her head uncovered while praying or prophesying disgraces her head, for she is one and the same with her whose head is shaved. And we discussed that last week. That's most likely referring to the prophetesses that were up on the hill sacrificing to, I believe, the goddess Diana. And it was a fertility rite that these women would have sex with men so that the land would be bountiful. What an excuse. Come on in here so that we can get a lot of crops.
I like peaches. Let's go.
I like peaches. Okay. So, yes, dear.
In verse 4, it cannot be every man who has something on his head while praying. It cannot be his hair. It has to be a hat.
Right.
Because otherwise, every man praying would have to have a bald head.
Right.
Doesn't make sense.
Correct. I agree.
Yeah. You ever seen like what monks and monasteries?
They'll shave the top of their heads for that very reason.
Know that, Sal. I didn't know that.
Yes. So, and that's the part of the reason why they do it. But now, just keep that in mind. For if she does not cover her head, let her also have her hair cut off. And if it's disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off, like Joy Reid, people that will have their hair just cut off, bald, why not have their, or shaved, then let her cut. If it's a disgrace for that, then cover your head. Now, I'm going to jump ahead just to keep you in mind. We're going to go back and continue reading, but I want you to see verse 15. But if a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given to her for what?
A covering.
A covering on her head. So her hair is her covering on her head. At least there. And that's why it's a glory to her. Now, I'm always thinking of this. Look, next week, I was going to do it tonight. We'll do it maybe next week or so. And that is, we're going to study exceptions in the Bible. There's tons and tons and tons of exceptions in the Bible, both physically and even spiritually and doctrinally and circumstantially. There's all kinds of exceptions. And if you want to question that, then be part of that study next week, because that's going to be a humdinger. I thought about this and prayed about it and wrote it while I was lying in bed, I think 2 days ago, right, Pat? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just started going through my head. It was like a moment of inspiration. No, but it just some thoughts came to my head about exceptions. As I even wrestle with some exceptions in the Bible, or possible exceptions in our lives today, and how to deal with that. So that's next week. But the norm is what? Men lose their hair, don't they? What do they call baldness in men? It's called something.
Male pattern baldness.
Okay, I was going to say, Pat, don't say it. But it's called male pattern baldness. She's very familiar with it. She's very familiar with my male pattern baldness. Now, do some women get that baldness? Yeah, but that's not the rule. The rule is the norm is not that you see a bunch of women walking around looking like Ben Franklin.
Well, they don't lose their hair in the same way. That's why it's called male pattern. There's a pattern to the way men.
Well, there are women that'll get that same ring around the head. Ring around the collar.
Alopecia or whatever.
Yeah, but it's more of a alopecia can be more of a propecia, or alopecia can be more of blotches of baldness everywhere on the whole head and a thing throughout. But a male pattern baldness is that usually not ring around the collar, but ring around the head kind of a thing. And where it's bald up in here. It starts with a bald spot usually in the back, and then it starts receding, but they're different guys. There are generalizations, and then there are exceptions. But I want you to be thinking about that when a long hair is given to her. Is this something that she gets on her own? For her hair is given to her for a covering. Who gave her hair? The man? The corner store? I mean, you can buy hair now. You can buy wigs and stuff, but we're not talking about that kind of giving right now. It was given to her on a covering on her birthday or on Christmas because the kids felt sorry for her. No.
All things originate from God.
Right. So the point is, it was given to her by God. What was given to her by God?
Her hair.
Her hair. And that's why long hair is a glory to her. Now, going back, verse 7. For a man ought not to have his head covered, since he is in the image and the glory of God, but the woman is the glory of man. Now, when I read this passage, have you ever wondered why reading? You probably didn't. I have. A lot of people will say that when we're made in the image of God, that doesn't mean what we look like. It means that we're spiritual beings. The Bible talks about not making for ourselves graven images or likenesses of anything that's in the heaven above or the earth beneath. Thou shalt not bow thyself to them. That word for image and this word for image are, whether it's in Hebrew or now in Greek here and in English, that word image is like if you have an image of something or someone.
Like a picture?
Like a picture. When Moses could not look upon God, right? Or otherwise he would what?
Die.
Die.
Surely die.
Surely die. So, but God covered him. But what did Moses see? As God passed by,
His back.
his hind parts, his posterior. Now that's interesting. If he's just talking about image here, a spirit rather, just a spirit, does a spirit have a posterior? An omnipresent spirit that is here and in your house and in my house at the same time, as well as on the other side of Saturn and the far ends of the galaxy? Or does he have an image? A likeness. In our likeness, he said. So he has an image. So with all that said, have you ever wondered if God was bald?
No.
But I read this and I go, maybe God was bald. Men know not to have his head covered. Of course, he's made in the image of God. Just a little something to think about. Not speculate about too long, but it's not necessarily speculation if you put together a number of verses. For example, we see pictures of Jesus with a beard all the time. Does the New Testament say he has a beard? No. But is it speculation to say that he had a beard? No. Because there's an Old Testament passage that he fulfilled when he was being crucified. It says they plucked the hairs of my beard. So what did Jesus have? But now, is that speculation? No, it's further information based on study and understanding of the prophecies concerning Jesus and the night of his trial. You see what I'm saying? So when you put some verses together, you understand, oh, yes, Jesus had a beard. How long was it? I don't know. Long enough for them to start plucking the hairs of his beard out on him, and that can hurt. You know, grab a couple of hairs of your beard there or your mustache and just yank them. See what it feels like. So, that being said, And for man does not originate from the woman, but the woman from the man. What is he talking about? He's going back to what again?
The garden.
The Genesis, the creation of man and woman. So his discussion, is it cultural? You might think it's cultural. Some people have said this whole chapter is talking about the Corinthian culture. Does that sound like culture? Is he talking about culture with Christ as the head of every man? That God is the head of Christ? That man is the head of woman?
No, but I did read some commentaries on this because you asked us to look into a couple things, and people do make the case, like you're saying, that they had a prevailing culture that had men doing a lot of effeminate things with long hair and things like that, and that he's arguing against their culture with obviously using the Bible.
But a lot of people have said to me that his argument is cultural.
Well, in this case, it would be countercultural. He's calling for that to be different than the
right. You study the culture there, then what he's saying would be countercultural, right?
Yeah.
Number one. Number two is there's another point to that. And that is, what is he using as his argumentation?
Well, he's appealing to the authority of Scripture.
Creation. He's going back to the created purpose and the created positions. For indeed, man was not created for a woman's sake, but woman for the man's sake. Remember, it's not good for him to be alone. He's just referring in order the creation of man and woman. He made them male and female. So when I look at that, I say, okay, therefore a woman ought to have a symbol of authority on her head because of the angels. Now, what does that mean? Because of the angels. Got any ideas? We go into a couple of passages. Let's look at Jude verse 6. Jude verse 6. Just before the book of Revelation starts. And this is one of those places where Jude is referring to something that's referred to really only in the book of Enoch, by the way, which is not in the canon. Somebody says, well, then the book of Enoch should be in the canon. There are reasons why it's not in the book of Enoch, in the completed Bible. But yet it can be used and quoted and be scriptural. A prime example of that is in Titus chapter 1. I was thinking about this one this morning before I got out of bed. I do a lot of churning of this stuff way before I get up. Hours before. That's why I can't ever get back to sleep. But anyway, Paul told Titus to do what? Why did he leave him in Crete? Does anybody remember besides Pat? For this reason, I left you in Crete. That you might what? Titus chapter 1. What does it say? For this reason,
that you would set in the order what remains and appoint elders in every city as I directed you.
Verse 5, right? So I left you in Crete to do what? You might set in order what remains or what's lacking, what's not done yet, and appoint elders in every city. Whose job was it to appoint the elders there? An apostle?
Well, in this case, Titus.
In this case, Titus, who was a young evangelist. And this is somewhere between 63 and 65 AD. And he was to do that where? In every city on the island of Crete. And then he goes into the qualifications of elders there. Namely, if any is above reproach, the husband of one wife, having children who believe or believing children, or offspring, that means offspring, not just maybe just little baby children, not accused of dissipation or rebellion, riotous activity. For the overseer must be above reproach as God's steward, not self-willed, not quick-tempered, not addicted to wine, not pugnacious, not fond of sordid gain, but hospitable, loving what is good, sensible, just, devout, self-controlled, holding fast the faithful word, which is in accordance with the teaching, that he may be able, and it's by the word that he's doing this, that he may be able, using the word, to both exhort in sound doctrine and to refute those who contradict. You know what it means to refute those who contradict? Using the scriptures to prove them wrong. Not saying, oh, we don't do that around here. That's not how we handle it. So we're going to disfellowship you. On what ground? Or we just don't want you teaching that around here. What do you mean around here? They don't have that kind of authority. What he has the authority to do is to teach with sound doctrine and to refute those with the same sound doctrine who contradict that sound doctrine. Not him, the sound doctrine they're contradicting. Get it? That's important. For there are rebellious men, many of the rebellious men, empty talkers, deceivers, especially those of the circumcision, who must be silenced. But how do you silence them? He just told you how to do it. To exhort with sound doctrine and refute those who contradict. Isn't that what he said? Are you reading it? Am I making this up or am I reading it? They must be silenced. They're upsetting whole families. Now, if whole families in a church or a congregation are getting upset by somebody bringing true scripture into that congregation, they're not guilty of this. The congregation is. I guarantee you that if you went to the local Methodist church and you started teaching the truth, you're going to upset whole families in that church. I guarantee you, you go to a Catholic church and start telling them they shouldn't be calling the priest father and their bishops must be married and so on and so forth. They're going to want to kick you out, excommunicate you. Why? Because you're upsetting whole families here. But with what? Their contradiction, their empty talk, right? Their deceit. They're deceivers, empty talkers, rebellious men who must be silenced because they're upsetting whole families, teaching things they should not teach. And what's the reason? For the sake of what? Verse 11, the end of the verse. Titus 1. For the sake of sordid gain. Now, here's the point I'm about to make about Enoch and the canon. One of themselves, a prophet of their own, said, Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, and lazy gluttons. This testimony is true. For this cause, reprove them severely. Gently. No, severely. That they may be sound in the faith. Not paying attention to Jewish myths and commandments of men who turn away from the truth. When you start making commandments of men, what do? You have to. You have to set God. Jesus said, you nicely set aside God's word in order to keep your own commandments or your own traditions, the precepts of men. Didn't he say that? He sure did. So, but notice what he said here. One of themselves, a prophet of their own. So he was familiar with what other people were saying. Let me just see something. I'm just curious. Something just kind of entered my mind. I wanted to see if I was off track on something that I was going to bring up. A prophet of their own. Yeah, I just want to see what the other translations said. Was Paul familiar with a prophet of their own? Was he a New Testament prophet? Was he a writer of the New Testament canon or scripture? Did he quote him? And did he say it was true? So can you quote something true from somebody outside the canon and it be good? Did that prophet then be his whole books and all his writing be in the New Testament? No. Why? Because he said something that was right? Do you get the point? I think that's pretty obvious. So why Jesus did refer to and quote something from the book of Enoch, and Jude is going to be referring to something from Enoch and the account of the falling of the angels and the rebellion in heaven and all that Enoch goes at length about, but nobody else does. That doesn't mean everything that Enoch said was correct.
Isn't the issue with that book like a chain of custody issue? That it was like
no, it's not just
for a really long time.
There are some things that are also inconsistent with biblical theology.
Well, that's what I mean. Is that because it's not as cataloged as the New Testament, you don't know what was added to it or taken away from it.
Well, but it wasn't considered scriptural by the Old Testament keepers of the Pentateuch and the Mishnah and the Gemara. It was not. It wasn't copied and recopied as much like how we know books are canonized. Okay, so when we see something that is referred to by Enoch, it's just a side little rabbit I'm going down just to help you. When somebody says, "Well, if they're quoting it, then he should, why isn't his book in the Bible?" Besides all the other things that like the canonization, it wasn't copied and recopied as much. It was some people questioned it. There were Jewish scholars that disagreed with things that were in it, and so on. You can have things said by false teachers, even that are correct, and it's okay to quote them. It doesn't mean their writings need to be in the Bible. Does it? All their writings, everything they said? No. And that's a prime example because Paul said, one of their own prophets said. And then is it okay to generalize about people? That's not fair. You should never generalize. I've heard that said since I'm in 9th or 10th grade. That's not fair to categorize or generalize. Well, the Holy Spirit said it was okay. Didn't he? In verse 12 of Titus chapter 1. One of themselves, a prophet of their own, said, Cretans are what? Everybody on Crete. Now, by the way, from these people, he's got to appoint elders, right? He's got to appoint elders at some point. But Cretans, generally speaking, there are exceptions, and then we go, part of that study for next week. There are exceptions, but Cretans are what? Read it to me. Rutger, what does it say? Cretans are what?
Always liars, evil beasts.
How often are they
rebellious.
liars?
Always.
Always liars. What else?
Evil beasts.
Evil beasts. What? Oh, you can't call people animals. That's wrong to call a fellow human being an animal. Well, they're evil beasts. And what else are they?
Slow bellies.
Slow bellies. Oh, that's the King James version you got there?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Mine says lazy gluttons. Lazy gluttons. That's what it means, literally. Slow bellies. Lazy gluttons. Yeah. Slow bellies. I'm looking at my KJV now. So, now they're always that way. Now, are there exceptions? Yeah, he had to find them to make them elders, didn't he? To appoint them as elders?
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, I thought so. But how do you deal with them? How do you make them into elder material? Well, you got to get them to become sound in the faith, right? Verse 13, right? And how do you do that? Well, with love and patience and persuasion. No, I want the Bible. Give me the Bible here. There are times when love and patience and persuasion are what you need to do. But for people that are lying, evil, beasts, and lazy gluttons, how do you deal with somebody like that? Therefore, what? For this cause, what do you got to do? This is
I have rebuked them sharply.
What?
I have rebuked them sharply.
Rebuke them sharply. Now that's not a gentle. Hey, buddy, let me take you aside. Is that what that's saying? No, you rebuke them sharply. To what end? To shut their mouths, like the verses before by the false teachers? No, not necessarily. To do what? What's your goal there? Rebuking them sharply. From the verse. What
so that they might be sound in faith.
That they might be sound in the faith. If you want somebody to be rock solid, sound in the faith, that's like that, how do you deal with it? Well, I don't know. I just don't agree. Well, then you're arguing with God, not with me. Oh, I didn't write it. I just cite it. I didn't wrote it. I just quote it. Okay? So, when we look at all that, when we go back to now in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, and we see that because of the angels, I'm sorry, we got to go back to
You didn't read Jude.
Jude. Sorry. Thank you. I just saw that as we got there. So continuing now, after making our point, Jude verse 6. And angels who did not keep their own domain, but abandoned their proper abode, he has kept in eternal bonds under darkness for the judgment of the great day. That's one passage. Now, what did the angels do there that was wrong? Two things. Well, one resulting in the other.
They didn't keep their own domain, but abandoned their proper abode.
Okay. So were angels originally in a heavenly state? And they were cast out and then kept in chains of darkness until the final judgment, right? Till the great day, the judgment of the great day. That's the great declarative judgment. And that's one of those verses, by the way, that talks about there's a declarative judgment day. Like the final sentencing day, as opposed to the judgment that we receive when we die. When we die, our judgment is sealed, isn't it? You're found guilty or innocent based on the blood of Christ or the lack thereof. Can you change anything once you're dead? So you're judged, but there's still a judgment day coming. An eternal great day. Okay, now.
Use the example of a declarative judgment, please.
Yeah, well, that's like, for example, P. Diddy was found guilty months ago, wasn't he? I think it's months. Month and a half or 2 months or whatever it was. He was just sentenced a few days ago. The declarative judgment day was that when he was sentenced for his crime. So you can be found guilty. They hold you under judgment until the great day of judgment or your declarative day of judgment. Okay? That's the way our courts work too. Same thing. Now, let's go back to 1 Cor. 11. I'm sorry. Another verse we can look at is 2 Peter 2, verse 4. 2 Peter 2 and verse 4. And this kind of goes along with what Jude verse 6 says, doesn't it? For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, was it possible? Is it possible for angels to sin? Eternal beings that could sin. They're not just eternally good, period. But cast them into hell and committed them to pits of darkness reserved for judgment. Okay? Now, so when you have these, women ought to have a symbol of authority on her head because of the angels. It's to remember that angels did not stay in their proper place, in their abode, in their assigned position. Like Jude said, they had fallen by not recognizing a higher authority over them. And this case, for the women, it would be the man's authority. In the angel's case, it was the Father's or God's authority. So, having this on her head shows her subjection to the man's authority. The covering. But again, I want you to remember, but the woman that has long hair, it's a glory to her, for her hair is given to her for a covering. However, verse 11, chapter 11, in the Lord, neither is woman independent of man, nor man independent of woman. Neither one can say, I don't need the other. For as the woman originates from the man, so also the man has his birth through the woman, and all things originate from God. So man can't say, oh, I don't need women. Yeah, oh, really? How's the next man going to be born? And he needed her. But she couldn't be made without man giving up a rib. Judge for yourselves. Is it proper for a woman to pray to God uncovered? Literally, it's with her is not there. It's in italics. It's just uncovered. Does not even, and this is the verse I wanted you to look up on, does not even the Corinthian culture itself teach you? No. Does not even nature itself teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a dishonor to him? Hey, Rutger, I'm not picking on you.
I cut it.
Oh, man, look at that. And that's not bad. You did cut it, huh? You see, because I had hair, even I had it that long after I got my hair cut. I had it about that long, a little longer. Then I got married. So for my wedding, I got it cut. Then I went to Sunset, and I thought it was plenty short, and they made me cut it again when I got down there at the Bible Institute. But the reason for that was, I think, not only the discipline, because they like to have a clean cut, like a military discipline there. You reflect on the outside what you're trying to get on the inside, and vice versa. It has its effect. So that was probably it. But I remember getting called into Klein's office, the Gray Eagle, the director, and saying, don't you think you need to cut your hair a little more? I was like, okay. I wasn't going to argue with him. I was glad to be there. So, and here I was, just married, new wife. But does not nature itself teach you that if a man has long hair, it is a dishonor to him? Really simple. How does it do that? You know, I've had a lot of people refuse to answer that question over the years. I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Take a stab at it. No, I'd rather not. How does nature itself tell you that it's a shame for a man to have long hair? This is all part of the judge for yourself. This is
Eating.
what?
Stop eating whatever you're eating.
Judge for yourself. What would you say? Come up with some suggestions. How could nature itself talking about the natural progress of things, the natural world, you know, and this is talking about same thing like the natural man versus the spiritual man. So this is talking about our physical beings. Doesn't the nature of our physical beings itself tell you that it's a shame for a man to have long hair? Well, how does it do that? Take a stab at it. I'll give you a hint. Okay? Ready?
I'm sorry, I thought we did this already. Didn't you already talk about the male pattern?
No.
Well, actually, he just said it.
Now you've said it. I referred to it earlier.
We already did this.
No. Now I'm getting back to this question of verse 14. I wanted to know, how does it tell you that? Now, that's just my understanding of that verse. If you have a different understanding, I want to hear it. I've heard people say, well, that's because of the culture in their area. No, it's nature itself, not the nature of their culture.
He's using nature to argue against their culture.
Right.
But it is about their culture. Those two things aren't separate. You know what I mean? He's
but I've heard
countercultural. That's why I thought
I've heard people say that it's a shame for a man to have long hair because they lived in the Roman culture.
But no, who would think that doesn't say that?
Who would think that? About half the preachers in the Lord's church.
No, they're saying that they had long hair because of their culture. No one's saying that Paul is using their culture to argue. That's both of those things can be true.
I don't understand what you just said. Explain yourself.
Okay. I don't think anyone would think that Paul is using the Corinthian culture to argue against the Corinthian culture. He's using scripture to argue against their culture. And he's using nature, the natural process, like you said.
No, I'm telling you the way some churches that I've attended and sat in Bible classes for around the country and in the parts of the world where they believe that it's a shame for a man to have long hair because God said so. And even the Corinthian culture agrees with it. So they're violating the culture of Rome. That nature, because if you look at any of the statues and the thing, like Caesar's, did they have long hair? No, the barbarians did now. You know, the Vikings, the ancient barbarians, some of the Spartans, the ancient Greeks, from the Grecian Empire, they were known as these long-haired Spartans. And the same thing, now, again, are there exceptions to this, even scripturally, for people, religiously?
Yeah, like I said, I told you I was reading about this.
Yeah.
I have this up here.
Think of the one.
A Nazarite vow.
A Nazarite vow.
But that was an exception.
Right, that's the exception. There can be exceptions to these things.
It says, as far as Corinthian culture, it says, in the time and place where this was written, long hair on men was often seen as a sign of shame or something associated with effeminate practices, which is what I said earlier. It was like
but if that was true, that's a little confusing, actually.
Because they're going along with their culture and women shaving their heads and men wanting to have long hair. And he's saying, no. Stop that. It's the other way around. Women have long hair and it's given to them as a glory by God.
Covering.
A covering. It's a glory to her and given to her by God as a covering. As a covering. And that's verse 15. So when I see women with really short hair or shaved heads today, I don't think that they're identifying with the prophetesses of Diana, prostitutes on a hill. But weren't they supposed to have a glory from God given to them? How about the men that have the long hair? Now, what's long hair? I don't know. Longer than mine? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm teasing. But do I jump ugly on everybody that I've seen with long hair? Have I ever talked to you, Rutger, about your hair?
Not that I remember.
Nope. Would I hope that someday we'll go over these passages and you may make some decisions on your own? Yeah. Because your response needs to be, from you, because of your own conviction. Just like being baptized. You're not supposed to get baptized because Kent said to be. It's not, I got to get baptized. Why? Because Kent said so. But why? I don't know. Kent said so. You got to have a better reason than that, don't you? For getting baptized? Or cutting our hair shorter? Now, long hair is still a relative thing.
It is with women too.
And it is with women too. It's a relative thing. In other words, for some people, Rutger's hair is long. But in Jesus's day, that was probably the length of what we see in artistic depictions archaeologically on people in Palestine at that age, in that time. Now, Egyptians basically were what? Short-haired men. But so the women also had shaved heads. If you look at the hieroglyphs. Now, if you look at just artistic representations of people back that time, you get an idea that hair about this long, around the chin, shoulder length here, right, is not long. Longer than past the shoulders, yeah, it would be considered long hair. Short hair, though, for a man in the Roman times, and even in the Grecian times, before before Rome took over, all the Caesars, all their heroes, everybody had what? Look at the statues, the carvings, and so on. They're all short hair. Short hair. What does that have to do with us in the New Testament times? How do we apply this to ourselves today? That's the question now, isn't it? How do we apply this to ourselves today? I mean, this is written for our learning, right? This is written for us to know how to practice. If I don't have to worry about my hair, then neither does the woman. And if she doesn't have to worry about her hair, and I don't have to worry about my hair, then we don't have to worry about who's in subjection to who either, do we? Because isn't that the way he started this whole thing out? And that this hair is a symbol of subjection and whose image we are in. Right? It's a symbol of subjection and authority and subjection. And it's a symbol of in whose image men were made. As the justification for this. Not the culture. Not the times. Not the style of that day. His argumentation is that men are made in the image of God. Right? And that's why we need to be concerned about it. Well, I don't understand what difference it makes. Well, do you have to understand it to believe it here? Oh, if I don't understand it, I don't believe it. Really? How did God raise Jesus from the dead after 3 days? What was the process? So explain it to me, since you understand it. Oh, I know. Well, then, but you don't believe it? Oh, I believe it. So you don't have to understand everything you believe. But can you understand what he's telling us of how men and women interact with one another and how they're supposed to do this? Now, how do you apply this? Remember, I had an instructor, a teacher once, that said that he prays with his wife in private in the room, and she leads in prayer, but she wears a covering on top of her head, a little shawl or something, or a yarmulke or a beanie or whatever she's got, Easter bonnet, whatever she's putting on her head. I'm being a little sarcastic there, but now he's doing that because he believes it's okay for his wife to lead him in prayer. I believe that a man needs to take the lead, even in the privacy of the bedroom or the inner chamber when you're praying together out loud. I don't think he's talking about women always having to wear something on her head like a bonnet all the time, like the Quakers do, right? The Quakers women do that. They have these little bonnets they wear all the time. There are Islamic women. They wear, if they're of age, I don't know if that's 11 or whatever it is, 9 or 10 or 11, they have to wear a head covering. I think it's called a habib, something like that. So, or hajib. I don't know how maybe you could look that up for me, Sal, if you're still with us. Hijab.
Yeah, that's it.
Hijab?
Yeah.
Okay. I figured it out eventually. But the point is that it's a symbol of subjection. That's what it's supposed to be. Now, the question is, how do you apply it today? Do women have to do that? I've seen women in assembly wearing a little thing on their head during church. I've seen some women just put it on during prayers and then take it off when the prayers are done. And then put it right back on if somebody's going to lead us in a prayer again. From the pulpit, doesn't matter. And not them, they're just sitting in the pew. What do you think about the application of that? And if not, why not?
It talks about a woman praying
And prophesying.
Or,
but if it
not and or.
And or prophesying, right?
wait,
Or,
I just had it. I'm sorry.
Twice. He mentions it twice. Verse 5.
Oh, is it proper for a woman to pray? Not when her man is praying, but is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered? So it doesn't have anything to do with when a man is praying. It's talking about her.
Yeah,
Right.
but if he's leading you in prayer, you would also be praying at that time, would you not?
Yeah, you're being led in prayer. You're not supposed to be thinking about what you're going to cook for dinner while somebody's praying. Oh, I'm sorry, I stepped on a toe there, huh?
No.
I'm kidding.
I'm
teasing you.
looking to say something and I lost it. It just looks like in verse 13 that is it proper for a woman to pray to God with her head uncovered?
That's what I'm wondering.
Well, women did pray in services with just women.
Sure.
And maybe then they covered their head.
Sure.
I don't know.
Maybe.
It's confusing to me because of verse 6 and verse 15. So verse 15, just to add to what Pat just said, it says, but if a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given to her for a covering. So there you go.
She doesn't.
Her hair is covered.
Anything.
Right. So her hair is covered. But then go back and read verse 6 again. It says, for if a woman does not cover her head, let her also have her hair cut off. So that's not talking about her hair. That's talking about her having a covering on her head besides her hair.
Right.
So those two verses taken together are difficult.
A little bit difficult.
Yeah.
Right. And if we want to be scriptural, that's why I don't jump ugly when I see the women in church. There's a couple of them in this congregation. A couple of them I baptized. I didn't teach them to do this. This is what they do on their own. I've never even touched the subject with them.
But
over the years.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just going to say, to answer your original question of what we should do if a woman wants to do that, I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, if she wants to put to use your words, a bonnet on her head when she prays. I don't think that there's anything prohibitive about that.
All right.
I just don't know if it's mandated or not.
That's the question now. What if she doesn't do it? Is she not doing it? Is she not doing it, and because of the angels, and not keeping her a proper abode?
I guess the question is, does verse 15 somehow erase what is said in verse 6? Not erase it, but take some kind of precedent over it. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, is that the final thing? Is that the final answer? She's got a covering if she's got hair, so don't worry about it. I don't know, but because he's saying if she's not going to cover her head, then cut off her hair.
Right.
Which means she has it, but she's just not covering it.
Right.
And if she's going to cut off her head, she might as well shave her head and be like those other women.
Right.
If you're going to abandon, just go for it. Which he's not saying good.
And it's because of that, the reason why this is difficult for us to understand, that lends me to believe that he's probably speaking to something specific about their culture, which doesn't make as much sense to us. That's where I tend to kind of lean towards that, because
according to verse 16, right?
Oh, yeah, sure. Because then he's kind of appealing to, that's not just for you guys, that's every church that I set up. So it's not specific to your culture. This is all the churches.
And if you want to argue with me, and that's verse 16 is, if you're inclined to be argumentative, that's another way of saying, if anyone is inclined to be contentious, that means if you're going to argue with me, if you're going to fight with me on this, contend means to fight. If you're going to fight me on this, I don't have any other practice anywhere. We have no other practice, nor do any of the churches of the Lord, churches of God.
Right. So he's saying it's not specific to you. It's not
specific to them.
It's the churches that Peter set up are going to be like this. The churches that everyone said, all of them.
Right. So now it's not the cultural thing that you might think was pointing to.
Well, no, I think it's general to specific. It's like he is talking to their culture, but he's saying this isn't like I'm targeting you because of this. This is the way it is in all of the churches.
Okay, but so what is it? That the women should have a shawl on their head when they are praying?
Women should not shave their head like the whores in the temples or whatever, and that men
should not have their head uncovered either. But their hair is given to them as a covering.
Yeah, that's like I said, it's difficult.
Yes, dear.
The only thing I was thinking of is it proper for a woman to pray with her head uncovered? Does that mean with her head shaved? And then he could say, but if a woman has long hair, it is her glory, for her hair is given to her for her covering. So is he saying that if you have no hair
You're
and
uncovered.
you're uncovered, you have to cover your head? That's what I think.
But if he has hair uncovered, then cut off your hair. Verse 6.
Right.
So she's got hair, but still has it uncovered.
For if a woman does not cover her head, let her also have her hair cut off. I don't know. I thought I understood this whole thing, and now I don't know.
I see Pat with a Grateful Dead bandana on at church on Sunday.
That was kind of, I don't know if it's for this reason or just general modesty, but that is kind of the practice of old Christian and Jews too, where the women would not even be in public with their hair uncovered. You know, you go back and watch old, like Little House on the Prairie type stuff, like you mentioned the bonnets and some. All the women covered their hair when they were in public. Same thing with Jewish women.
And that's the reason too.
I don't know if it's because of this. I think it's more about modesty, but
no, but that's what made it immodest, is the scriptures. I'm telling you where it came from.
Is this talking about married women, or is this just talking about women in general? Because that's another issue.
it doesn't mention anything about marriage. I would think it's talking about.
It didn't even say their men or their women as possessive. Christ is the head of every man, and the man is the head of a woman. And God is the head of Christ. So I don't see husband or wife here at all.
Well, it talks about...
And there's no Greek words for husband or wife anyway.
I know, but it does depend on how it's used.
Right. Possessive or not. These don't appear to be possessive at all. So how do you deal with it? Have we reached any conclusions? No? Well, my position, my understanding is that her hair is given to her for a covering, and it is to her glory. And if she has that on her head when she's praying or speaking to other women, as long as she's got long hair in the glory of God, it also shows her subjection to her man. To man.
So you're throwing out verse 6 then?
Well, I'm just saying that in verse 6, if she doesn't cover her head,
and I'm not even saying,
meaning if she doesn't have long hair, the glory, then cut it off. In other words, she has short hair at that point. Verse 6 is describing somebody not with long hair, but with short hair. Not shaved yet, but short hair. You know, what do we call that? A bobby? Or I don't know what they call that hairstyle for women.
I mean, I don't know where you're getting that from in the text, but okay. I do think it's possible that verse 15 he's building an argument. So it's very possible that verse 15 could take precedence over verse 6. He's starting off building an argument based on what they already understand and coming to a conclusion later, but that her hair itself is its own covering. So you don't have to worry. I mean, that is possible. I'm not saying it's wrong.
If the woman does not cover her head, with the covering that God gave her, verse 15, it's going along with that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He could be building up a case.
Let her also have her hair. If she doesn't do that, then cut your hair off. And if it's disgraceful for you to have the hair cut off or her head shaved, really just like with a razor, well, then cover your head with what? Verse 15.
Hair.
Her hair. That's what I've always seen ultimately is what has to be discussed there, unless we start putting hats on everybody.
Right, and also they're converting people, so they're dealing with this pagan culture. They're going to convert women who have had their head shaved or recently had, and your hair doesn't grow back overnight, so there's going to be a period of time where maybe you're going to have to let your hair grow, and maybe you have to cover your head, like at the end of verse 6.
That's another good point.
You know,
Oh, Sal, you're
and
so
to go back to like earlier in Corinthians, what was it? In 1 Corinthians 7, only as the Lord has assigned to each one, as God has called each, in this manner let him walk. And so I direct in all the churches.
So what would somebody do that's already got the hair covered, hair cut off?
Right, if you were called and that's the way you
hair.
were,
Guess what? Then put something on your head until it grows in.
Right. Yeah.
It's easier for a man to take care of the long hair issue. Just cut it off.
It's a lot quicker.
It's a lot easier and quick. It's quicker and it's easier. And for me, I do it twice a week. Sal.
It's pretty long. Yeah, it's not that long, but
It's about the same length as Rutgers. It's just a different style of hair.
yeah, mine's just all up here.
How long, Sal? How long is your hair in the back?
It's about to here all the way around.
Oh, okay.
But the point is, that's the way I viewed it. Is now, if a woman has her head uncovered while she's praying a prophecy, it disgraces her head. Or she is one and the same with whose head is shaved. So he's saying you're just as bad as those prostitutes. But if a woman doesn't cover her head, let her also cut her hair off. You're not going to cover it, then cut it off. But if it's already a shame for you to have your hair cut off and shaved, then cover your head. Why? Because she'd be ashamed of having that short hair right now.
Yeah, and I was reading a little bit.
Circumstance.
I was reading a little bit more about, because remember how I said before that in Corinth, I'm not in Corinth, but in Greece in general, it would be seen as like effeminate or shameful for men to have long hair. And Pat said that didn't make any sense based on what we were saying.
In Rome, but not
I was reading a little more. Corinth, it was a particularly degenerate place. So there was a lot more of that type of degenerate activity in Corinth.
Like men doing women things and women doing men.
It was San Francisco.
It was New York.
San Francisco, New York, LA, Portland.
Yeah, so they had a lot of, let's say effeminate men or prostitute women running around. So.
Oh, stop it.
I'm just telling you, I was just reading that. So.
I'll scratch your eyes out. So anyway, I hope that we got a little something out of this tonight. I think if you really look at verse 6, and in light of the fact that what he's saying that, and Sal, you touched on it, and that is he's converting people, and some of them have short hair. He's talking to people in that condition right now, and men with long hair. And he's telling them, get your act together. And in the meantime, if you got to put something on your head, ladies, do it as a symbol of your subjection. But remember this, that God gave you long hair as a glory, as the covering. And that's always been my understanding and answer of that passage. After all this discussion, this is going to be a nightmare for me to edit. But anyway.
Yeah, and you're supposed to be holy. You're supposed to stand. You're supposed to be an example. You're supposed to be set apart
That's so what it took for me to edit a 3-minute video today. It took all day. 3 minutes.
You created it and edited it all day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you didn't just edit it.
Well, what do you think I'm doing now?
Well, when you go to work on this, it's already there. Then you edit it, but it had to be all put there and then edited. So it's a different process.
Okay.
Yeah, all you have to do is just fast forward to all the parts where I say something, and then just put that out there, and then you really don't need anything else.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Hey, you know what? I appreciate everybody's faith and their discussion in this. It's not an easy subject, and a lot of people will give you their opinion. And again, opinions are like feet. Most people got them, and most of them stink. But if the opinion has got some education and scripture or information and knowledge behind it, then it's worth something. You make a decision as to whether or not you heard anything tonight that's worth something. But again, if you disagree, if you're inclined to be contentious, we have no other practice in all the churches of God.
I know, but we were trying to understand the practice that nobody else has anything differently.
But everybody does have something different in all these different churches, don't they? And even within the Lord's church, you'll see them.
Yeah, I don't want to start up a whole conversation about this, but even that is kind of confusing because I think I said this last week, but it depends on what translation you're looking at. Because even in the footnotes, it says we have no such practice, and the King James says we have no such custom, which is very different than no other practice.
Right, it is. Yeah, it is.
So obviously the translators, at least for NASB, understood it the same way that you are. But I'm saying that there are other translations where it sounds quite different.
Yeah, well, there's a difference, and that's why it would have been good for you to attend the Wednesday night classes that Pedro's teaching on the canon, because he went over the difference in, and I think it was one of the elders went over the difference in translations. There is a literal word for word translation, and then there is a I don't know how did he use a different word, but it's the idea of a colloquial translation. It's not a word for word, but it
idea for idea
translation. That's still a translation. It's different than a paraphrase, which is just to rephrase in your own words something that it means to you. And that's a paraphrase. The Phillips Bible is a paraphrase. The Living Bible is a paraphrase. The New International Version is one of those thought-for-thought translations where New American Standard, New English Bible, American Standard, they are more word-for-word translations. I'd rather get the word-for-word translation because a thought-for-thought can still be misunderstood by a translator or interpreted with a bias, or not even translated at all because of a bias.
Yeah, and the languages are so different that a lot of times word for word is impossible. Like you've said it yourself, like they simply don't have a word in Greek for this, or they don't have a word in Hebrew for they don't have tenses, for example, in Hebrew. So you have to add that, for it to make sense in English. But
I watch sign language. There's different sign languages, and they have a signer up in church every day, right? Every class and lesson, and I'm watching them sign, and I can tell, not knowing much about sign language at all, but I can tell as they're translating with their hands what's being said verbally.
It's ideas.
It's not word for word. It's conceptual translation, not a word for word translation. All right. it's like a thought for thought, as opposed to a concept for concept versus a word for word. I'd rather have the word for word because I want to know the words that the Holy Spirit chose and study that out and figure it out and wrestle it with it myself and dig it up. But anyway, thank you everybody for coming tonight.
Thanks for being a part of that study segment. I promise you that, Lord willing, there's more to come. With the understanding that the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure, many of these studies have been broken up into a series of bite-sized segments. So be sure to look for the next segment in each Bible study subject, so you won't miss out on any important information. Please like and subscribe if you feel that this lesson's helped you, and God bless you in your search for truth.